What if everything you thought men care about was wrong, especially after 60? For years, women have been told that beauty fades with age, that youth equals value, and once that's gone, so is the chance to be truly seen. But after over a decade of working with senior women, guiding them through life changes, emotional growth, and rediscovering their confidence, I've learned something remarkable. True attractiveness doesn't disappear with age, it deepens. I've seen it firsthand. Women in their 60s, 70s, and even 80s who thought they were invisible suddenly found themselves being quietly, sincerely noticed, not for their looks, but for the way they moved through the world. Men were drawn not to their makeup or their figure, but to their calm, their presence, their way of listening, or simply the warmth in their voice. The truth is, men at this stage in life are paying attention, just not to the things you think. They notice your grace and hardship. They notice how you treat people. They notice when you carry yourself like someone who knows her worth, not because she's flashy, but because she's real. In this video, we're going to explore 7 surprising things men actually notice in senior women, and none of them involve turning back the clock. They're qualities rooted in strength, kindness, self-respect, and emotional presence. And I promise, some of them may just shift the way you see yourself. Before we begin, I'd love to know, what do you think makes a woman unforgettable after 60? Drop your answer in the comments below. And if this message already resonates with you, go ahead and like this video, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Your voice, your support, your experience matter more than you know. Because aging doesn't take away your light, it reveals it. And now, let's begin with the very first thing men tend to notice, often without realizing why. A quality that speaks louder than appearance and lingers longer than charm. Let's talk about kindness. 1. Kindness toward others, the quiet power men never forget. He wasn't watching her looks. He was watching how she treated a stranger. That simple truth often catches women by surprise, especially those who have lived through decades of being told that beauty is about youth, smooth skin, or the right dress. But after more than 10 years working with women in their 60s, 70s, and beyond, I've learned that real attraction is rooted in something far quieter and far more powerful. It's the way you treat people when no one is watching. I've seen it time and time again. A man becomes interested in a woman not when she tries to impress, but when she acts with warmth and humanity, helping a neighbor carry groceries, saying thank you with eye contact, showing patience to someone who speaks slowly. These moments, though subtle, leave a lasting impression because they speak volumes about a woman's values. Kindness, especially in later life, is not just about manners. It's a signal of empathy, inner strength, and emotional safety, qualities that matter deeply to men who are no longer chasing thrills, but craving connection. One man told me he fell for a woman simply because she greeted everyone by name at the senior center. That's when I noticed her, he said. She made people feel like they mattered. In an age where so much attention is placed on the visible, it's the invisible gestures that often mean the most. True kindness doesn't seek applause. It simply leaves people better than it found them. And to a man who's been through life's highs and lows, that matters more than you know. If you've ever been that woman, the one who listens, who gives without fanfare, who treats the invisible as visible, then you might be touching hearts without even realizing it. And speaking of listening, there's another quality men deeply notice, though it's often misunderstood. It's not about being quiet, it's about being present. So next, let's talk about genuine listening, and why it might be the most attractive trait of all. 2. Genuine listening, the rare gift men crave most. She didn't say much, but the way she listened made him feel more seen than anyone else ever had. In my years working with older adults, through grief, loneliness, and the search for meaningful companionship, I've come to believe this. True listening is one of the most powerful and most overlooked forms of connection, especially later in life, when so many conversations have become rushed, transactional, or half-hearted. Being deeply listened to feels almost sacred. Men may not always be able to articulate it, but they notice when a woman is truly present with them, not just hearing, but receiving. It's in the way she holds eye contact without rushing, how she nods with intention, how she pauses before responding, as if she's really absorbing not just the words, but the emotion behind them. I once had a male client in his 70s tell me, "The first time I spoke to her, I didn't feel the need to prove anything. She wasn't waiting to talk. She was just there. That kind of presence is rare, and it's magnetic. Genuine listening communicates something far more profound than agreement. It says, "You matter. Your story matters. I'm not here to fix you. I'm here to understand." For men who have spent years being expected to hold it together, this kind of emotional refuge is often what draws them in and keeps them close. The best part? You don't need to be a great conversationalist. You don't need clever stories or big opinions. Sometimes, just being there, fully, gently, patiently, speaks louder than anything you could say. True listening is less about words and more about presence. And a woman who can offer that kind of presence becomes unforgettable, even if she never raises her voice. And that brings us to something else that speaks before words ever do. Something men are even more attuned to than you might expect. It's the silent language your body speaks the moment you enter a room. So next, let's talk about body language and how the way you carry yourself reveals more than you think. 3. Body language and presence. What you say without saying a word. And that brings us to something else that speaks before words ever do. Something men are far more attuned to than they often admit. It's the way you walk into a room, the way you carry yourself when no one's watching, the quiet messages your body sends without a sound. Your body language and presence. I've watched men notice women not because they were the loudest or the most animated, but because there was something grounded in the way they moved. Shoulders relaxed, chin lifted, steps steady and unhurried. A woman who walks with presence, not perfection, tells the world she knows who she is. And that kind of quiet confidence, it draws people in. I remember one woman, Elena, 74, who had just recovered from hip surgery. She still used a cane and moved slower than she used to. But the way she stood tall, smiled genuinely, and walked into every room with grace made people stop and watch. One gentleman told her, "You walk like someone who owns her story, not like someone trying to hide it." That moment stayed with me, because body language isn't about looking younger or walking sexy. It's about alignment, when your outer movements match your inner strength. From a psychological lens, posture and movement are deeply connected to self-perception and emotional well-being. When you carry yourself with intention, even if your steps are slower, even if your knees ache, it signals to others that you're present, open, and self-assured. Men pick up on this, often unconsciously. They notice when you stand like someone who respects herself. And just as importantly, they notice when your body language closes off the world, arms crossed, eyes down, shoulders slouched, not because they judge it, but because it tells a story of someone who may be guarded or unsure. The beauty of body language is that you don't have to force it. A genuine smile, relaxed hands, eye contact that says, "I'm here," those are more powerful than any outfit or hairstyle. Presence doesn't come from pushing, it comes from permission. Permission to be where you are, as you are. And now, speaking of how we express ourselves, there's one more element that carries immense emotional weight, even more than the words we choose. It's your voice, the tone, the rhythm, the energy behind what you say, and what it reveals about your heart. Let's talk about that next. 4. Voice and tone, the sound that stays with him. And just as your body speaks without words, so does your voice, not just in what you say, but in how you say it. Over the years, I've learned that tone is one of the most underestimated yet powerful signals a woman sends out, especially later in life. While women often worry about saying the right thing, men are listening for something entirely different, the energy beneath the words. I've had men describe a woman's voice like a place they want to return to, not because it was loud or charming, but because it made them feel safe. A calm, steady, genuine tone, especially when spoken with warmth, can soften defenses, dissolve tension, and create a quiet kind of intimacy. And in a world that's often noisy and demanding, that kind of emotional refuge becomes magnetic. You don't have to speak often or eloquently to be unforgettable. In fact, sometimes it's a few gentle words, spoken with care, that stay with someone the longest. "I believe in you." Take your time. You don't have to explain. These phrases, when delivered with true sincerity, hold more power than any romantic line ever could. I once sat with a man in his late 60s who had lost his wife 2 years earlier. He said the thing he missed most wasn't her laughter, or even her presence. It was her voice in the kitchen in the morning. It made the house feel alive, he told me. That stayed with me. Because tone isn't just communication, it's emotional atmosphere. Men are deeply affected by how a woman sounds when she's at ease or when she's tense. They may not say it, but they notice when the tone is sharp, dismissive, rushed, and they retreat from it. Not out of pride, but self-protection. Conversely, a voice that carries empathy, lightness, or groundedness becomes a space they want to return to. And here's the truth. Your tone reveals how you feel about yourself. When your voice is kind, you're not just kind to others, you're kind to you. That's the real attraction. But kindness doesn't end with how we sound. It also shows up in how we care for ourselves quietly, daily, without needing applause. So next, let's talk about self-care. Not as vanity, but as a sign of quiet power. 5. Self-care. What quiet discipline says about you. If the tone of your voice reveals how you feel inside, then self-care shows the world how deeply you value yourself. And let me be clear, I'm not talking about spa days or designer clothes. I'm talking about the quiet, consistent ways you honor your body, your time, and your peace. Because men do notice, not in a shallow, appearance-driven way, but in the way they notice someone who shows up for herself every day, even when no one else is watching. Over the years, I've worked with many senior women who didn't think anyone paid attention to how they dressed, ate, or moved anymore. But when they started prioritizing themselves, eating better, walking every morning, doing their hair not for others, but for their own joy, something shifted. Not just in how they felt, but in how the world responded to them. One man once told me she had this quiet pride about her, the way she packed her own lunch, kept her hands soft, never rushed but was always prepared. It wasn't about looks. It was about the energy she brought into the room. Like she'd already taken care of herself, so she had room for everyone else. That's what self-care communicates. It says, I respect my own life. And because of that, I can fully show up in yours. Men don't need perfection, but they deeply appreciate intention. The way you nourish yourself, rest when you're tired, protect your energy from chaos, these are not selfish acts. They are signals of emotional maturity, and they build a kind of quiet trust that can't be faked. I've often said that how a woman treats herself is a preview of how she will treat others in the long run. And men sense that. They may not comment on your vitamins or your walking shoes, but they feel the difference between someone surviving and someone choosing to thrive. And now that we've talked about how you care for yourself, let's turn to how you care for others, not through giving advice or solving problems, but through something even more profound, the rare and beautiful act of listening. Let's explore why genuine listening might be the single most magnetic trait you already have. 6. Genuine listening, the space where connection happens. You've taken care of yourself. You've cultivated a quiet strength. But what happens when someone sits across from you, with a story to tell, a truth to share, a memory that needs room to breathe? That's where genuine listening comes in. And believe me, men notice when a woman doesn't just hear them, but actually holds space for them. True listening isn't about nodding politely or waiting for your turn to speak. It's about being fully present. It's about making someone feel, even without words, that they matter. That what they're saying isn't just noise in the air. It's something you're receiving with care and curiosity. I've worked with men in their 60s and 70s who've spent a lifetime being providers, problem solvers, protectors, yet few have felt truly heard. One gentleman once told me, I've had conversations that lasted hours, but only a few where I felt understood. She just looked at me, and I knew. I didn't have to explain it all. She got it. That kind of connection? It's unforgettable. Listening, in its purest form, is a gift. And women who offer that gift, not just through words, but through attention, body language, gentle pauses, often find themselves drawing others in without effort. Because to be listened to is to feel safe. And safety is more attractive than any clever story or perfect comeback. You don't need to fix his pain or impress him with wisdom. Just your presence, calm, open, undistracted, creates the kind of emotional space where connection naturally blooms. And in a world where everyone seems in a hurry to respond, the woman who simply listens becomes rare and deeply valued. But there's another layer to how men perceive a woman, something even more instinctive, something they pick up on the moment you enter a room. It's the energy you carry, the emotional climate you bring with you, whether it soothes or stirs the space around you. And that's exactly what we'll explore next. Let's talk about presence. Not the kind that demands attention, but the kind that changes the room without saying a word. 7. Personal energy and presence, the vibe that lingers. She didn't speak first. She didn't try to impress. But the moment she walked into the room, something shifted. A warmth, a calm, a quiet clarity. That, right there, is the power of personal energy, and men notice it more than they can ever explain. You see, long before we say a word, our energy speaks for us. It tells people how we feel about ourselves, what kind of space we create, and whether we bring peace or pressure into a moment. And for many men, especially later in life, energy is everything. It's not about being cheerful all the time or faking positivity. It's about being authentic, grounded in your truth, yet open-hearted enough to invite others in. I've seen it countless times. A woman who doesn't say much, who's not the loudest or most vibrant, yet others feel drawn to her. Why? Because her energy says, "You're safe here." And in a world full of noise, that kind of emotional stillness becomes magnetic. One man described it perfectly. Being around her just felt easier. Like I could breathe a little deeper. That's presence. That's the kind of attraction that doesn't fade with age, it deepens. Personal energy is shaped by how you treat yourself, how you speak to others, how you move through stress, and how much unresolved heaviness you carry. And here's the beautiful part. You don't have to be perfect to radiate peace. You just have to be real. People don't connect with polished, they connect with present. If your presence has ever made someone feel calmer, more comfortable, more human, even for just a moment, then trust me, you're already more powerful than you think. Because after a certain point in life, what matters most isn't how you look, or even what you say, it's how you make people feel. And men remember that long after the conversation ends. So now, after all we've explored, your kindness, your listening, your energy, your quiet strength, let's bring it all home. Because there's something deeply liberating in realizing that you don't have to chase validation, look younger, or try harder. You simply need to show up as yourself. And in the final part of this video, I'll remind you why aging isn't something to fear, but something to honor. Let's close with a message I hope stays with you long after this video ends. By now, you've probably realized something powerful. The things that men truly notice, the things that genuinely draw others to you, have nothing to do with wrinkles, waistlines, or wardrobe. They have everything to do with what you carry within, your kindness, your presence, your calm, your care. And the truth is, those qualities don't fade with age. They ripen. In all my years working with senior women, I've seen one common pattern. The moment a woman stops chasing the version of beauty she used to be and starts honoring the wisdom she is now, something shifts. She walks taller, speaks softer, loves more deeply, and without even trying, she becomes magnetic. Because here's the truth no one says out loud, but every emotionally mature man feels. Real beauty is felt, not seen. It's in the way you listen without judgment, the way you enter a room without trying to control it, the way you carry your past not as a burden, but as a story you've survived and now offer with grace. You don't need to prove anything. You don't need to look 40, act 30, or compete with 20. The most powerful, captivating version of you is the one that's fully present now, grounded, wise, unapologetically real. So if this video resonated with you, I'd love for you to share your voice. What's one moment in your life when you felt truly beautiful, not because of how you looked, but because of how you made someone feel? Leave your story in the comments. Your experience might be exactly what another woman needs to hear today. And if this message meant something to you, if it reminded you of who you are and how much you still have to offer, please take a second to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell. It's free, it helps us grow, and most importantly, it keeps this message of quiet strength and real beauty spreading to more women who deserve to hear it. Because aging isn't the end of attraction, it's the beginning of depth. And the woman who knows that, she doesn't need to chase attention. She becomes unforgettable.